Are you quite certain Ankh exists, or... Oh, what, Charles? Eleanor snapped, her voice sharp and filled with exasperation. The suddenness of her outburst echoed in the chamber, causing shadows to flicker in response. Do you truly think I would fabricate something like this? That I would willingly seek out a haunting just to upset you? Welcome to the Pharaoh's final resting place. Prepare to explore secrets that have slumbered for millennia beneath the sands, and to marvel at the allure of the past. The guide's voice, muffled by layers of shawls and scarves draped around the carriage, rang out with a dramatic fervor. In the stifling heat of an Egyptian summer, beneath the looming shadows of the ancient pyramids, Eleanor and Charles Ashcroft embarked on their honeymoon, propelled by both romantic optimism and intellectual curiosity. Their carriage, adorned with the elegance befitting a Victorian traveller, approached the entrance of a recently unearthed tomb. The air was thick with mystery, the excitement palpable as they stepped out and took in the mystery around them. Marvel at the allure of the past, the guide repeated as he led them toward the entrance with unrestrained enthusiasm. Egypt was intended as an adventure to christen the Ashcrofts' marriage, a grand tour as exhilarating as their courtship had been. But despite their mutual adoration, the couple presented a striking contrast. Charles, a physicist with the prestigious London Institute, was a man of numbers, equations, and the natural laws of the universe. Eleanor, however, trusted in the realms beyond sight and reason. She found meaning in Ouija boards, tarot cards, and the delicate movement of a pendulum. Charles noticed the small pendulum in her hand and chuckled softly. Those toys of yours again? Eleanor threw him a playful glare. Mock the spirits if you must, Charles. They have guided far longer than any of your calculations. Despite their differing perspectives, they were irresistibly drawn to one another, each finding something inexplicably magnetic in the other's nature. Their Egyptian journey promised a blend of science and mysticism, a harmony that seemed well suited for the land of ancient wonder. As they descended into the tomb's shadowed depths, Eleanor felt an unsettling chill wrap around her, heavier than the mere coolness of sand-covered walls. There's something wrong here, she murmured. Charles, ever the pragmatist, offered a reassuring smile. These places play tricks on the mind, Eleanor. Nothing more than the weight of history. She forced a smile, but felt her pulse quicken. In the flickering shadows, she could swear something moved, but their guide had yet to follow them down, and no torches flickered nearby. Tightening her grip on the pendulum, Eleanor decided against mentioning it. She didn't want to darken Charles' enthusiasm for the exploration they had long awaited. "Look, my love, a chamber!" Charles's voice brimmed with excitement as he pulled her forward. The passage narrowed, and faint, disembodied whispers reached them, a sound that could almost be mistaken for a breeze. But Eleanor felt it in her bones. They were not alone. Symbols adorned the walls, ancient and indecipherable, each pulsing with an unsettling energy. An obsidian scarab embedded in the wall caught Eleanor's attention, glistening with a strange, hypnotic glow. Her heart raced. This tomb was not just a resting place. It was something far darker, charged with a forbidden power. As she took in the scene, a figure appeared, half emerged from the shadows. A young woman, pressed against the wall, her eyes vacant. Eleanor felt an inexplicable pull toward her, almost a melting sensation, a kinship that tugged at her very soul. And then, in a flood, she felt through her a wash of loneliness, despair so profound that it echoed in her own heart. Her hands blindly searched for a way out, fingers scraping against rough stone, stone, and more stone, trapped, buried alive. The apparition vanished as Charles approached, oblivious to the vision, and Eleanor exhaled, trembling. "Something's happening, Charles," she whispered. "Please, let us leave." Charles, again, offered a gentle smile, his skepticism unyielding. "You're merely overwhelmed, my dear. This place affects the mind." "Please," she insisted. Reluctantly, Charles agreed, and they left the tomb earlier than planned, the disappointment evident in his eyes. That night, Eleanor's sleep was invaded with vivid dreams. A figure emerged, Ankh, an ancient priestess. Her sorrow-filled gaze seemed to pierce time itself. In the dream, Ankh's ghostly form reached out, her eyes haunted. "The tomb is cursed," her voice echoed in a whisper, as soft as sand over stone. "Only you can release me." Eleanor reached for her but felt nothing, a chill as hollow as death itself. She woke with a gasp, shivering as if Ankh's presence still lingered in the shadows. The following morning, she sat at the table, her tarot cards laid before her. Pendulum swaying as she sought answers in the silence. Charles entered, noting her pallor. "A troubled night?" he asked, his concern softening his tone. "Ankh appeared to me, Charles," Eleanor murmured. "She's trapped, her spirit bound to that place. I believe she needs our help." Charles' brows knitted. "And how might we do that?" Eleanor took his hand, holding it close. We must return. Find the scarab. It's the key, Charles. We can lift the curse. Let her spirit rest. He sighed, reluctantly agreeing. That afternoon they returned to the tomb. Their guide hesitated, unwilling to venture further, leaving them to explore alone. The tomb's atmosphere was heavier than before. In the dim chamber, Eleanor placed her hand over the obsidian scarab, feeling a surge of energy pulse through her fingers. "We're here to release you, Ankh," she whispered, her words echoing in the stillness. Charles stood back, his patience thinning. "Are you quite certain Ankh exists, or—" "Oh, what, Charles?" Eleanor snapped, her voice sharp and filled with exasperation. The suddenness of her outburst echoed in the chamber, causing shadows to flicker in response. "Do you truly think I would fabricate something like this? That I would willingly seek out a haunting just to upset you?" Charles took a surprised step backward, momentarily caught off guard by her intensity. "How do you speak to me like this?" "Because I'm done pretending. You see me as the naive little wife, don't you? Just someone to protect from the harshness of reality." "What?" "I heard you talking with your friends at poker night," she accused, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. Charles took a breath, struggling to keep his composure. "Listen, Eleanor, love, darling, I'm not against you. Never. Your interests are just so different." His face softened, but his voice remained cool. "I only worry for you, Eleanor." "You belittle me," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "You never trust me, never see beyond your own signs." He sighed, lowering his gaze. "I try to be the anchor of your dreams." "Anchor or chain?" she retorted, her voice breaking. "This was meant to be an unforgettable honeymoon." Charles held her close, murmuring gently, "I believe it has been unforgettable." They left the tomb, returning to their Nile cruise, the weight of their argument still hanging over them. That night, Charles stirred to the sound of chanting, a low, haunting melody. Unable to sleep, he went on deck for a moment of calm. The darkened river shimmered with an ethereal glow, and as he watched, he felt an unnatural chill. "Mr. Ashcroft?" A waitress appeared, offering him a glass. The Egyptian waitress approached, her long black hair neatly tied back, dark eyes unreadable, yet warm. She held a silver tray with a delicate, misty drink. Her silhouette strangely familiar, though Charles couldn't quite place why. He reached for the glass, but as he glanced down at the tray's polished surface, he froze. The reflection staring back at him wasn't the waitress at all, but a vision of Ankh, as she might have been centuries ago. Her hair braided with gold, dark kohl outlining her eyes, her gaze piercing and ancient. The image seemed alive, holding him captive as Ang's voice echoed in his mind, each word filling him with a foreboding clarity. "Listen, Charles, your dear wife sees what you cannot. Heed her wisdom, lest you lose her." Charles gasped, his pulse quickening as Ang's gaze held his. Her expression softened, almost amused. "And one more thing, Charles," she murmured. "My spirit is not trapped nor bound to this world. I exist within another reality, a story overlapping your own." He looked around in disbelief as papers, as if summoned, began to flutter across the deck, one catching on his shoe. He bent down and picked it up, eyes widening as he read. Charles stared at Ang's reflection, filled with dread. The sentence pulsed with a truth he could no longer ignore. He looked up, his heart pounding as her image flickered once more on the polished tray, her smile enigmatic. "Remember," she said softly, "the lines between worlds are thinner than you know." A shiver ran down his spine, and for the first time he felt the boundaries of his world ripple and bend. His carefully constructed universe of facts and logic was crumbling, giving way to something larger, something he could neither measure nor define. He looked up at Ang, his gaze now open, vulnerable. A man glimpsing the edges of a vast unknown reality. The next morning, he found Eleanor gazing over the Nile. He gently placed the pendulum in her hand, meeting her gaze with newfound reverence. "I didn't understand, Eleanor," Charles said, his voice thick with emotion. "But now I see. Forgive me." Eleanor took his hand, a spark of hope brightening her face. "Thank you, Charles. That means more than you know." They sat together in silence, watching as the first golden light crept over the Nile, illuminating the river in hues of rose and amber. The dawn spread across the landscape, casting a warm glow over them both, a gentle promise of renewal, a new beginning. As they sat, a soft voice broke the quiet. "Would you care for some coffee, sir? Ma'am?" They looked up to see the waitress standing nearby, the same dark eyes and calm smile, holding a tray with 2 delicate cups. For a brief flickering moment, Charles thought he glimpsed Ang's ancient knowing gaze in her reflection on the polished silver tray. Eleanor squeezed his hand, a slight smile on her lips as she took her cup, her eyes meeting his. The warmth of the rising sun touched them both, but Charles couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere just beyond the veil, mystery still lingered.